I would really love to see if I can show you a side by side, so hopefully we'll see if we can do that when we're editing the video, because I really want you guys to see the difference, and hopefully you can see how my face looked before, where it looked pretty flat. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my YouTube channel, which is all about beauty. Now today we're doing the Beauty 101 on concealer and contouring. There is so much you can learn from this. Everything you need to know, it's right here in this video. Now if you want to know how to prep your skin and how to apply your skincare, I've got just the video for you. It's my previous video, so make sure you do go and check that out. Now today we are going to be talking about how to apply it, how to choose the right shade, understanding undertones, everything that you need to know about concealer and also contouring. Now, let's jump into the video, but before we do, if you do like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button so that you never miss any of my future videos, because I really do appreciate all of your support, and that like and that subscribe makes all the difference in growing my channel and helping me to create better content for you guys. Now, you can also catch me over on Instagram, where you can watch my stories and my posts for daily beauty news, PR unboxing, product reviews, and what I get up to when I'm not filming on YouTube. So let's jump straight into the video. Now my skincare is done and it's ready for my concealer and contouring, but you can watch an in-depth detailed tutorial of my skincare, which is my previous video, and it will be listed in my description box below. And I'm going to get started with questions that you guys have sent in regarding concealer and contouring. So let's start off with the first one. Concealer is used to conceal. Now, it can be used for things like dark circles if you want to brighten the area, as well as cover up any flaws, blemishes, or even spots that you may have, or pigmentation issues. But it also, hand in hand, works by brightening the area, because usually you would go for a shade which is maybe one shade lighter or just a couple of shades lighter than your skin tone. This usually depends on your skin type and also the type of finish that you want to go for. So for example, a stick concealer will give you quite kind of medium to full coverage. And if you go for a liquid concealer, that can give you anything from light to even full coverage now. There's so much variety out there in terms of liquid concealers now. And also you have like concealer pens. That helps to give you more of it's much more lighter finish. It's more so about brightening the area as opposed to kind of like concealing the area. You also have concealers which are kind of like cream texture, so it's in like a pot and it's quite an opaque style concealer, so that gives medium to full coverage as well. So it does depend on the type of skin that you have, but also the type of look that you're going for. So if you want to make sure that you have good coverage, then maybe opt for either a liquid or a cream concealer. Personally, I feel like stick concealers can be a little bit obvious, and it really depends on the brand and the texture of the stick concealer, because some of them don't tend to kind of melt into the skin and they can kind of like just sit there, and it's much harder to blend it in basically. If you have quite dry skin, then I personally would recommend going for a liquid concealer, because the fact that it's more of a fluid texture to it means that it's not going to dry out your skin anymore, and it is easy to kind of like blend in. Whereas if you were to use a opaque concealer in a pot or the stick concealer, you may find that it's a bit difficult to kind of blend into your skin if you already have very dry skin. You can kind of like balance things out by using the right skincare. If you have the right skincare and you kind of make sure that you're well hydrated beforehand and your skin is primed well, like a hydrating primer, then you may be able to get away with more of an opaque concealer or a stick concealer. But it really does depend on the finish of your skin pre-makeup application. If you have quite oily skin, then I would recommend more of a opaque concealer. So the one in the pot, like the thicker creamy one, would work quite well because it's less likely to kind of slide all over the place, and you can kind of keep it compact in the areas that you want to cover. Now you could also use a pen concealer, because if you're not looking for too much kind of coverage, then you can get away with the pen. So it does matter what kind of coverage you want. What are you trying to cover in the first place? Are you looking for coverage? And if you are looking for coverage, then are you looking for just very light coverage, in which case you could go for a pen? Or are you looking for medium to full coverage that you can build up, in which case you could go for a liquid? Or are you looking mainly for full coverage, and you can go for like more of an opaque concealer or the stick concealer. Each concealer type really depends on your skin type as well as the type of look that you're going for. If you have combination skin like myself, sometimes that can be a little bit kind of dry, but not dry as in flaky dry, as in like tightness of the skin. And sometimes I feel like during the day my skin may get a little bit more oily. In that case, I prefer using a liquid concealer, but I do use a liquid concealer which is a medium to full finish, and I can build it up. And my concealer that I use is the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. I absolutely love it. I do use it in combination with other concealers, which I'll go through shortly, but that works well for me because my skin type works well with that type of concealer. It blends easily, but I can build it up if I want a heavier finish. And at the same time, I'm finding it easy to blend it in as well and go over with my foundation. Now, this question can be very frustrating for a lot of people, and I totally understand why. It took me quite a while to figure out what undertone I needed to kind of go for, and undertone is important for your foundation and your concealer. I'm going to stick to just concealer today because we can talk about foundation in another video. When it comes to your skin color and skin tone, that is very different to your skin undertone. It's not the same thing. Your skin color, your skin tone is what you see when you first look in the mirror. That is your skin tone, and your skin tone changes depending on sun exposure, how much you've tanned. So that's what you immediately see in the mirror. Like whether you are tanned, if you are quite pale, that's the first color that you see. And it's usually quite easy for people to know what skin color they are because it's like I said, it's the first thing that they notice when they look in the mirror is what is your skin color. Now, when it comes to undertone, that's completely different. Now, undertone is the permanent underlying color that your skin tone casts. There are so many different types of undertone, like you've probably heard most of them, like yellow undertone, pink undertone, olive undertone. There are just so many. So there are so many because there are so many different types of skin colors out there and skin undertones out there. So that's why I know a lot of people tend to say just stick to the simple, like warm, cool, etc. But even within the warm undertones, there are various different undertones within the warm category, various different undertones within the cool category, and various different undertones within the neutral category. Now, even though your skin color may change, your undertone is never going to change. So it isn't as easy to see, like I said, but what you want to do is grab a mirror and look closely, but make sure that you are standing in front of daylight. So go and stand in front of a window where there's great kind of even lighting all around and look at your skin there. You've got to look past the skin and understand that it's that kind of hue. It's a hue of color that you may see that isn't your actual skin color, but it's that a cast of color. So you want to see, is my skin more pink or does it look more yellowy to me? It is one of those things, to be honest with you, the more you look sometimes, the harder it may seem. Like you might be looking in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, I literally don't even know if I'm seeing yellow or olive or pink or what. Like, don't give up, or take a break and just keep a fresh mind and go out and have a look again. I know that my skin generally is more of a kind of golden tan color. That's my skin color, but my undertone is olive. So for example, if I were to look in a mirror in front of the light, which I've already done quite a while ago, and I can see that, right, my overall color is tanned. My undertone is olive because I do have quite, like you can see, you may not be able to see through the camera, but very, very close up in daylight, you can see the veins. And that gives it that more olive undertone. So it's slightly kind of a greenish undertone to my skin. Look carefully, look past the actual color and just kind of separate the areas a little bit. Have a look. Can you see any kind of veins anywhere? Is that giving you an olive greenish kind of hue to your skin anywhere? Do you have a lot of redness, and is it more or less all over? And is that redness, don't get inflammation redness confused with your undertone, because you could have redness on top because you've got inflammation and severe acne, but it could be that underneath you don't actually have a red or a pink undertone. So you want to make sure, because that may be something that you can color correct with a green color corrector to counteract the redness, and that's your color correction done. That's why you have color correcting, which is a whole different subject. Your undertone is, you want to look, say for example, if you do have acne or congested skin, look in the areas that is that you don't have any acne, and like even if it's a small area, just have a look at the skin, like just kind of press it a little bit as well and have a look and just see, am I getting more, is it more kind of pinkish underneath? Is it more olive? Is it more yellow? what is my undertone? And that should hopefully help you to determine what your undertone is. So I really do hope that's made it a lot easier for you guys to kind of like understand the whole undertone thing and choosing a color for yourself. Now, like I mentioned in my previous answer for the previous question, I personally think that it looks nice if your concealer is just a little bit lighter than your actual skin color. I do that for myself, but it's because that's my preference. If you don't want that brightness, a lot of people don't actually like that brightness. They just want the concealer to kind of cover the area, but look as close to their natural skin color as possible, then that's great for you. You can do that. So you don't have to use a concealer which is a little bit lighter than your skin tone. I personally do feel, based on working as a makeup artist for so long, I do feel that it gives you a nicer finish, especially if you're going for a kind of like nice medium coverage, medium or full coverage, like glam look. It does, even if you're going for a light coverage look, it does look really nice when you use a concealer which is a little lighter than your skin tone. I only recommend that if you're going to go in with a foundation which is either your exact skin color or a little bit warmer, because that way you're kind of balancing everything out and you've got that really nice brightness coming through underneath. Foundation is like a veil of color on top, but we're going to talk about foundation in a different video. This is just about concealers and contouring. Now, I personally like using the actual concealer wand for the concealer that I use, which is the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. And that's fine with me because basically I'll just draw it on everywhere that I need it. It's quite a good tip, to be honest. So I quite like that felt tip at the end and it works really well for me, so I'm happy with that. There are various different concealers which have different tips to the wand if you're using a liquid concealer. So you can apply it and then kind of go over it with a concealer brush. So if you use like a concealer brush like this, you can then smooth it over and that will kind of like give you a nice even finish before you start actually blending everything in. But again, it really does depend on what you prefer. I personally like using the actual tip and then I smooth it over that way. It does depend on the type of the texture of the concealer that you're using as well. So if you are using a opaque concealer, which is like in the pot, like a thick creamy one, then I would say apply that. I would apply that with my fingers in the areas that I want to, but keep it quite thick. And then I would probably go over with a brush to kind of like either blend it in with the brush or blend it in with a sponge. So it depends on the texture that you're using as well. If you're using a brush tip concealer, which is very light, a very light coverage finish, like the YSL Lightning brush tip, what's it called again? Touche-Éclat, I think. Touche-Éclat, I don't even know if that's how you say it, but anyway, that's the one. But you know, that's like more of a brightening concealer, so it's not really coverage, but it brightens the area and you can use the actual brush tip for that. So it depends what you want to use. If you're using a stick concealer, then I personally don't like stick concealers because I feel like you're going back and forth, even though you are doing that with a liquid concealer tip as well. But I feel like it's the actual, I just don't like the feel of it and it's a bit too thick and pasty for me. So a lot of people apply that straight on and then they'll blend it in with a sponge or a brush. I personally, if I was using that, I would probably prefer to just kind of scrape a bit off and then apply it with a brush and get that nice opaque finish and then carry on with the rest of my look. So contouring adds dimension to your face, and it's also about the effect of shadow and light. So you're basically using light and dark to kind of create that effect and give you that dimension in the face. It's great, for example, if maybe you want to enhance your cheekbones, or maybe you want to slim down the nose and just give the illusion of a slightly more slimmer nose, or maybe you feel that your face is a little bit round, so you want to kind of like slim it down on the side. So contouring is great if you want to create the illusion of a different dimension to your face, a different structure to your face. So it's about playing with the structure of your face and using makeup to manipulate and give the illusion of a different shape to your face using shadow and light. Now, although you may be thinking, well, contouring is using a dark shade, where does the light come in? The light comes in because we are, like, I'm gonna show you concealer application, but I use my concealer to help partner up with my contouring, so that's my light, if you see what I mean. That's also why I like to go for a slightly lighter shade concealer, because that is my light, and then my contouring is my shadow. So I've got my shadow and my light, and when you put them together and use them in certain areas, that's where you can really manipulate the shape of the face and you're gonna see this is gonna look completely different shortly. It really is a case of understanding your facial structure and knowing whether there's anything that you want to kind of change slightly, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I personally like my cheekbones to look a little bit more chiseled. I like my face to look a little bit just less round, and I like to add more of a lifted finish to certain features on my face. So I use my concealer and my contouring hand in hand to kind of create that effect basically. It isn't a case of do you need it, it's more a case of do you want it. So I would not say that anyone needs it at all. I would say that it's your choice, and if you look in the mirror and you feel that, oh God, I wish this was a little bit more lifted here, or you know what, I wish that my lips looked a little bit bigger, but you know, you don't want to go off and do any kind of like invasive procedures, then contouring is great for that, because that gives you a kind of temporary fix for that, or it just gives you that lift whenever you're putting a full face of makeup on and you want to give that kind of illusion or that effect to your face. Okay, this is a question that I have a lot of people asking, and the honest truth is, in my opinion, I'm going to be completely transparent with you. No, I don't think you need a contouring palette. I think it personally is a waste of money. I do find that it doesn't necessarily mean that every shade in that palette is going to suit you. So you have a couple of different types of contouring palettes. You've got obviously cream contour palettes, and then you have powder contour palettes. You have to pick the right tone of contour as well. And I do feel like most of the contour palettes I see are kind of cool toned. I don't really see some really good, nice, warm toned contour palettes. My skin color is warm, I am tanned. That's just going to make me look ashy. Anyone who has darker skin, especially darker than me as well, is gonna know that a cool tone contour is gonna make them look ashy. End of. It just is. Which is a shame, because that's what people of color need. Like, you need that option there as well. My personal preference is using concealers to contour. I use concealers for everything. I use concealers to conceal, to brighten, to contour, to highlight certain areas. I absolutely love it, and why not? I don't need to go out and buy a separate palette for that. I can do it with concealers, and personally I think most people can do it with concealers. Now, it doesn't mean that that's the only way that you can do it. Obviously, if you prefer using contour palettes, then you go for it. You do what makes you feel happy, but I personally prefer using concealers, so that's what I'm going to show you. So like I said, that's what I'm going to show you now. I am going to show you how to conceal and contour my face. Now, bear in mind, guys, I can only work on my face. I only have my face available, so it's going to be based on my face shape. So this doesn't mean that this type of contouring will work on every face shape. It means it works well on my face shape and my features. So if you have anything that's similar to mine, then it would work for you. And it may mean that you just need to kind of alter it a little bit for yourself. I think if you understand the reason as to why I'm concealing and contouring in this way, you can take away the bits that you feel apply to what you would want and use them in your own makeup application when you're concealing and contouring. I don't want you to think that this is the only way to do it. I also want you to really understand that it doesn't mean you do all of this at the same time. I'm doing all of this because I want to show you all of it, but you can take away bits. Like, you can only do the cheekbones if you want. You don't have to do the whole thing. The whole thing may be a bit much for you. So let's get started with my concealer first. Okay, so I'm using my Tarte Shape Tape in medium. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to conceal my eyelids because they really need to get covered so that it's a nice even finish. And I'm going to use my beauty blender to just buff that in. And my beauty blender is damp, by the way. Okay, so my concealer's on. I'm just looking down because I don't want to get creases in the lid. And I'm just going in with my powder, and I'm using my Laura Mercier powder puff to apply my Huda Beauty Easy Bake powder in banana bread because I love this powder and it just gets the job done. So I've pressed the powder in, you can see there, and I'm just dusting it off. I kind of like buff it in rather than dust it off, to be honest. I'm not like, you know, I'm just kind of like going into the skin. And that honestly stays put all day. I never get creases there or anything. It's all done now. Next up, we are going to apply this on the under eye area. Now the reason I've applied it here and here is because this will give me that nice coverage which will kind of like transition into this area here once I start buffing with my sponge. And the reason I've gone up in this direction is because this is giving me that brightness but also giving me that lift. So it's giving me that nice lift at the top there, which is also kind of like contouring because you're kind of adding that kind of lift there. And once I've applied my darker shade, which will go on after I've buffed in the concealer, you'll be able to see how that actually pairs up well with this to help, in addition, give it that extra lift as well. So the dark shade and the light shade work well together as a pair. It's at its full potential when together, the light and dark shade. Okay, I'm gonna start buffing this in, and I've just got my sponge, which again is damp. I'm keeping it within the area, and you can see I'm making really small movements here. They're not too big, and I'm just making sure that it spreads out nicely. Small movements that are kept together and not too big. So can you see that lift there, that subtle lift there now because we've taken it upwards? Now I'm going to go in with a different concealer. Now you may be asking, why am I not using the same concealer on other areas of my face? The reason I'm not is because that concealer that I use on my under eye area and on my lids is quite a thick concealer, and I get some amazing coverage with it, but I don't want as thicker coverage as that on the rest of my face. So I'm going to use my NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer, and this will give me good coverage, but it isn't too much. Like on the under eye area, I don't use this because it's just not enough for me and it doesn't last as well. Whereas the Tarte Shape Tape lasts really, really well, and it also gives it that slight brightness, but at the same time, it stays put as well. Do you remember earlier I was mentioning to you how with your concealer, even though this is bright, can you see it still transitions into my skin tone well? So it's still the right undertone, it's still the right tone for the right color for my skin as well, but it's giving me that nice coverage without it looking like it's completely disconnected from the rest of the face, even though we haven't actually finished the face yet. So I'm gonna use this color here, and this is a little bit lighter than the concealer that I use on my under eyes because it's more so about the brightness here that I'm looking for. Now, the way that I am concealing today is really kind of like an all-out way, like if I'm doing full glam. This isn't like an everyday type of concealer, way of concealing, can I put it? But for the kind of look that I'm going to finish off with in future video, in like the next few videos, you'll see that it works well with that look. Now for this I use a brush, and the reason I use a brush as opposed to a sponge is because I just feel like this buffs in really nicely, because I'm not really looking for that really nice opaque finish there. I'm just looking for that brightness there, and it blends in nicely with the brush. So I don't need that major coverage the way that I know that I get with a sponge. I'm keeping the shape the same, but I'm just kind of like making sure it's kind of buffed into the skin well. So you could see the areas that I applied it was here. If I didn't apply any here, then I would feel like once I've actually finished the entire look that this area just doesn't have the same kind of coverage as the rest of the face. And I've seen this on some people where they've got great coverage from the eyes down because they want to cover stuff up, but then they forget to actually do it here. It's not, I don't think it's that they forget. I think that most of us have clear, like you have a clear forehead. There's no kind of like, not as many blemishes there. And because of that, you think I don't need as much makeup there, which is fine. You probably don't, and you don't have to have as much makeup there, but you still need to put some so that it doesn't look completely disconnected from the rest of your face. Down the nose was to just highlight the nose and equally make sure there's some kind of even coverage there as there will be in other places. And then this section here gives it a nice lifted finish. And these areas here, it's a little bit of darkness there, so I wanted to make sure I brighten that up. Now I'm gonna go in with a darker shade, and this is my contouring. I'm gonna use the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer in a dark shade. And I'm gonna just apply this first and then show you when I start blending it in and explain to you why I've applied it in these areas. So, okay, so as you can see, I've got my contour on. These are the areas that I would contour on if I'm going for a full glam look. I've applied it here into the hairline because I like that to kind of look a little bit, kind of just slim it down a little bit. And I've applied it on the sides of the bridge of the nose quite quite as, like, the width is quite small, so I've made sure that that's equal as well, like as in symmetrical, and also the width is the same all the way down. And also this area here. This area here is to actually make the tip of my nose look a little bit smaller, and this area here is to slim down the bridge of my nose. Now here I've applied it from the top of the ear inwards, but I've made sure it doesn't come all the way in, because as soon as you start blending, it's going to start spreading. So always keep it smaller than how you want it to actually end up. Now this area here is done so that I have that really nice kind of like contoured cheekbone. It gives me more depth there, and it just overall, all of this will add more dimension to my face. Here and here is to make my lips look a little bit bigger, so it will just kind of make them look a little bit bigger this way. And then under the jawline here is just to help kind of sharpen the jawline. I'm going to take that down into the neck area. I'm using my Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood complexion brush, because this brush honestly like blends everything in together really well. Now, okay, this, you want to make sure it goes into the hairline. So you want to make sure that it is going into the hairline and there's no gap there. If you see a gap, it's not really doing its job properly. So we want to make sure this really kind of ends up blending into the hairline, so it gives the illusion of a slimmer or just a smaller forehead on the sides. Okay, now we're gonna do these sides here, and I'm gonna just, can you see I'm just buffing it in? I'm not really going back and forth, I'm not gliding over the skin. And like I said, it spreads, as you've already seen on the forehead, right? So that's why you wanna apply just a small amount and keep the shape small, not as big as you want it to end up. If you go for a concealer shade which is too light, it's not gonna come through after you've applied your foundation. Okay, I'm going to flip it over so I can use a smaller side. You can see that everything I'm working on, I'm keeping the shape the same. I'm not changing the shape of it. I'm just making sure it looks blended. Can you see I've taken this up here into this area here because I like that whole look. And the reason I didn't apply it that way is because I knew that the product is going to spread. So I knew that I can just move it up there myself and it will be just the right amount. So now you can see what it looks like with everything blended in. You can see we've got concealer that we've used for the brightness and to cover up certain areas like the dark circles, the forehead, and you can see all of that coming through. I hope you can really see how, what I mentioned earlier, with how that dark shade and the light shade work so well together. So the light shade helps to enhance certain areas. The darker shade helps to kind of give that shadow effect so that it kind of disguises or defines certain areas. And that's the whole effect of having shadow there. So that's why this area looks like it's just kind of like going in more. And then we've got this area here, which looks like it's coming out more. I would really love to see if I can show you a side by side. So hopefully we'll see if we can do that when like we're editing the video, because I really want you guys to see the difference, and hopefully you can see how my face looked before, where it looked pretty flat, and then now you can see there's a lot more definition. We've kind of changed the shape of certain areas and really kind of brought out certain areas within the face. Now we're going to move on to foundation application, which is on my next video. So I'm going to move on with that, and if you're confused about whether you should be applying foundation after concealer or before, then we have a video for that. I don't know where you've been, but we've got a video for concealer before or after foundation. Now you might want to head over to that video so that you can see which side you prefer, foundation before or foundation after concealer. I prefer it this way, so that's what I'm going to do. But this is all done, and I hope this has explained concealing and contouring to you in a in-depth and easy to understand way. So I really do hope I've answered most of your questions about concealer and contouring, but if you do have any more questions, let me know in the comments box below. Now, as always, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button so that you never miss any of my videos. Until the next video, take care, and I'll see you soon.